Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Garb August, Criminal's great event in August on BookTube where we read trash for the whole month. We're running out of days for Garb August. We're running out of days for August. Kind of amazing. I've had a blast this time around, although Garb August 2024, it's been great, but it's been different from the others in that it's made me do a lot of thinking about garbage. What it is, where it is. I'm not forsaking my own profession. I know when a book is bad. But there are all kinds of bads. And I've been doing a lot more meta thinking about Garb August this year than I have been in other years. That's been wonderful too. And most days in August, I have been adding a book to my nightly reading just to, as I'm going about the day, I am accumulating the stuff I'm going to read that night when the whole world quiets down. And I tended to add a piece of trash to my reading every night, knowing trash. My reading on nights of new releases often includes trash, but it isn't knowing trash. I've added a little piece here and there pretty much every night in August. And I added something last night that I enjoyed quite a bit, but it is once again having me think meta thoughts about garbage. Because I read a book from 1974, this thing, The Last Time I Saw Hell by Simon Quinn. This is an Inquisitor novel, and it's called that because it's about Francis Xavier Killy, who is part of the actual living arm of the Inquisition in the Roman Church today, in the present day. This takes place in the present day. He's part of the arm that once upon a time encompassed the Inquisition. He is therefore not exactly a normal man in holy orders. He is, for instance, able to be a libertine if he wants to be. He's not taken a vow of chastity. He is free to kill people and torture them and beat them up. And he becomes in this book a kind of ecclesiastical super spy, a super agent for the Vatican. Which is, I guess, a pretty interesting premise. Ordinarily, when you get a freewheeling agent of the Vatican, their job is supernatural. It's to, do exorcisms or whatnot. Here, it's something different than that. He's got a gun and a car and a whole bunch of aliases and a whole bunch of experience in the real world where he is often in mortal danger. And here he is on the trail of a defrocked priest who is also a rogue agent with the church. He's on the books. Killy is on the books. This other guy, the villain of the piece is not. He's a rogue agent who is thinking by various clerical and temporal means to kill his way to toppling the French government, which, if you remember recent news articles, if you look at international news, doesn't look like it would take all that much effort to do. But they beat back fascism, at least for one electoral ruse. So we got to give them that. So that's the international jet-setting mission that Killy is on. And there's that defrocked priest, and there's another character, a secondary bad guy, who is far more interesting, far more charismatic, far weirder than the main one. And the main character it's amazing how many of his private moments Killy manages to see or overhear, secreted on a ledge or in a closet or something like that. The bad guy has no idea how much of his intimate stuff Killy has seen and heard. So there's one scene in particular where he's listening to this guy in bed with one of the book's 3 female sex pots. When they're finished, he says to her, "Well, that was pretty good. Not as good as last time, but pretty good." And she's all panting and awestruck and says, "I don't think you're human." It's very, very, very 1970s. But Killy has his eye on the whole book. The whole book is not long. It's a tiny little thing. He has his eye the whole time on the main bad guy, who he manages to capture at the end of the book and drug so that the man won't be in complete control of his emotions or his mind or his tongue, so that he will reveal his secrets. And you might think, okay, that sounds just like a normal Garb August potboiler. What is the problem? There isn't a problem. I really enjoyed this. The problem was the writer. And I don't quite know how to put my finger on this. I'm assuming, like with every Garb August book that I read, that Simon Quinn is a pen name. I'm just assuming that. I'm assuming that most of the stuff that I've read for Garb August has been written under pen names. And it's going to sound strange given the plot summary that I just gave you, but there's real talent in this book. Not the kind of real talent that a crappy Garb August author might show from an occasional inspired moment now and then. I've encountered those for years in Garb August, where I'll be reading an absolute piece of sexist, racist, violent trash, and there'll suddenly be a simile or a metaphor that it's actually quite good. Or a character that is well realized in the midst of a whole bunch of one-dimensional, badly realized characters. That's not this. That's not what's going on here. This is... I'm curious to know who Simon Quinn is, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because this is garbage written by a talented writer. No way to it. There was no way for me to miss it, even at the halfway point of the book. There was no way for me to miss it. I almost think I know what talented writer it is. There's no way that I would ever know that. But whoever wrote this book has a recurrent obsession with death and life, the line between the two, and whether or not you can be dead while still alive. What it means to have all your dreams stripped from you. To be something that you don't want to be, so that you are dead while still alive. That concept, that conceit, comes up over and over again in this book. I think that's probably the inspiration behind the title of the book. And that obsession reminds me of an author. I can't remember for the life of me who it is. I know that it's not any of the big names that I'm thinking of. This book is too late for Graham Greene or C.K. Chesterton. But I want to read you an example of what I'm talking about, because I don't know that you'll believe me otherwise. Killy has a bad guy drugged and at his mercy. And they have a discussion. It's toward the end of the book, but it's not revealing anything. And I want to read you a chunk of this to give you a sense of what I mean, of what was confusing me throughout this book. Now, Killy laughed again, louder than before. Now do you know where you are? Because he's in a safe house with all sorts of illusory material around him, specifically so that he won't know. The laughter boomed at Salan from every side. He forced himself to push a finger into the raw wound and as a result nearly passed out from the pain. Killy rocked back and forth, holding his sides. Salan leapt, his hands reaching for Killy's throat. Killy brushed Salan's arms away contemptuously. As the director passed, the Inquisitor shot the tranquilizer into the neck below the wound. Salan whirled, but Killy had again disappeared. Salan crouched against a column. The head wound was artificial, no matter how sensitized to touch it was. The visions were holograms. He'd worked that out. But now the overdose of the phenothiazine was reacting to earlier injection of dextromethorphan, putting his body's entire chemistry through flux and driving him hard into black depression. Also, some of the tranquilizer's side effects were making themselves felt. Salan's eyes were beginning to roll up and down. His neck jerked spastically from side to side. He tried holding his head still with his hands and failed. This is what you will be like, Killy's voice commiserated in the dark, forever and ever. There is no hell, Salan struggled to say, but his eyes continued rolling and his neck twisting in grotesque contradiction of his words. And the voice of his chemically born depression answered that yes, there was a hell, and this was it, and he would, for hours, years, centuries, be a freak in the dark, always paralyzed. No, you're lying. You see, Killy said, you were wrong about there being no difference between good and evil, that they were arbitrary distinctions, and that without the church, good and evil were one and the same. Killy's tone was mildly reproving. Evil is different and heads in a different direction, a river that ends in a separate sea. This is the sea. I did a poor job reading it, but still, that is not usual. That kind of thing is not usual. That image that good and evil are rivers headed in different directions, and this is the sea, that sort of thing happens throughout this book. A character will have a regular action moment, and then there'll be that weird reflection. on whether or not they're actually on Earth at all, whether or not evil is the wage of anything. I don't know. Maybe Simon Quinn is the author's name. Maybe that's true, and maybe he was just, second son frustrated in the priesthood or whatnot. I have no idea. I don't know anything about this author. But this was a strange book. It was definitely garbage. Definitely. The women are cheap, usable items. The men are always doing things contrary to their own interests in order to have sex with the women. There's gratuitous violence. There's a kind of masochism that runs throughout. And the main character, Killy himself, is very nearly superhuman, like the heroes of all these kinds of books are. It's definitely trash. But Garb August still has surprises to throw at me, even in its waning days, because there was something going on here. There was something that this writer was doing that I didn't expect at all. Not enough to make me see if there are any other books in this series. I'm not interested in that at all. But still, I'm going to resist the urge to Google Simon Quinn. I'm just going to leave it as a Garb August mystery, but it was fun. This was fun. Lots of fun. It was lots of fun, yes, in the way that Garb August always is, but it also had more going on in a way that I'm not used to in my garbage at all. I mean, the Hotel was 5 times this long and had nothing like those weird moments, those weird clerical moments of good and evil. The author, this was done in the early 70s. The author that I might suspect here, if Simon Quinn is pen name, would be Powers, Jeff Powers, the author of Mort Durbin, and because he wrote this kind of stuff about the Roman Catholic Church, but there's no way, and it's too good to be Andrew Greeley. Even in its trashiness, it's too good to be Andrew Greeley. I don't know, it could be Simon Quinn. Either that, or it's an author who is fundamentally concerned with not only good and evil, definitely separate things, but how fluid they are, and how fluid they can be. How good can abandon a good man, even while evil is not accepting him. That's exactly what happens to Killy in this book. Good abandons him, or at least he feels that it does, but evil will not accept him. So he is not quite living. I don't know. Sorry. Don't mean to be going on like this. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be wrapping up Garb August tomorrow with my final pick, but my second to last one really threw me. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.